Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Appreciate you being here. If you're watching this on a replay later, if you're watching this on a replay later, thank you for watching it later. I appreciate it. Uh, we'll get started here in just a minute. Try to give everybody time to come in. You can type 45 in the chat, and Nightbot will drop the link to your channel. If you have any questions as we go along, please place those in the comments, and I will try to address them. If I miss your question and I don't get to it in a few minutes, ask me again. And one thing I wanted to do tonight, before I get started on talking about medical supplies, is I want to thank each and every one of my subscribers. I went over 1,002 subscribers today. That's a good deal for me. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I've gained, I think, 148 in the last 28 days, so my channel is definitely growing. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And stick around. I'll try to get some more videos out and try to put some information out there that people want to see and something that we can all try to learn from. I know right now it don't look like we've got anybody in here. That's all right. We'll stick around. Hopefully some people will show up here in a minute. And we'll try to answer any questions and talk about some medical supplies. Hello, Brian. Welcome in. Appreciate you being here. I'm kind of just killing a few minutes here, Brian. Hoping, waiting on to see if anybody else comes in before I get started. So how's Brian this evening? I'm doing good, Brian. It's been a real good day. I think you might have come in just a few seconds too late, but I seen on YouTube Studio a while ago when I checked, I hit the 1,002 subscriber mark. So that's good for me. I really appreciate each and every one of my subscribers. Coming up in the future, I'll try to plan a 1,000 subscriber live stream giveaway. Try to give some small prizes and stuff out to the people that are subscribed to my channel as a way of showing my gratitude to them. And hopefully this channel will just continue to grow and we can get more people in here and we can all learn from each other and try to be as prepared as we can for an emergency. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, it was a good deal to me. I felt real good about it. To be perfectly honest, I started this channel, I think tomorrow will be a year ago. And I was kind of looking at, well, I might try to retire in 3 years. And in 3 years, maybe I'll have a channel built up enough to give me a hobby to do and maybe make a little income on the side as on YouTube. And here it is, like one day being a year, and I've already hit 1,000 subscribers. So that's good. I still got to get the watch hours up to try to get the monetization. That'll happen once it happens. I'll just keep putting out videos, and hopefully it's videos that people want to watch. as of right now, looks like it's going to be a slow night. So. May have to find a different night to do these lives on, but it's really difficult. There's so many people doing live streams all at the same time, and I don't want to step on toes of people that I subscribe to and I support. And it's trying to find a night that works for everybody. I know Wednesday nights is probably a bad night for some. Yeah, I appreciate it, Brian. I've got a few videos in mind coming up. I'm going to start a series of videos on medical, on first aid, on, how to treat different types of injuries that you might encounter. How to stop bleeding, how to bandage for bleeding, how to apply a tourniquet if needed, how to pack a wound, how to put a splint on, just different first aid topics. And in case people are wondering, I've been a certified first aid basic and advanced first aid instructor for some time now. CPR, AED instructor, and a stop the bleed instructor. I am a certified firefighter EMT in the state of Kentucky. I am not offering anybody any medical advice as far as that's concerned. If you've got medical questions or seeking answers for medical, you need to discuss that with your healthcare provider. But I will discuss some supplies and stuff that I think you should have on hand for all types of emergencies that can occur. A lot of people say, well, yeah, ain't nothing ever going to happen. But if you watch the news any at all, it's happening every day somewhere, be it a train derailment, a forest fire, a tornado, a flood, a hurricane. I mean, there's all kinds of natural and man-made disasters that happen all the time. And I'm not the one that's going to tell you that, it's doom and gloom. It's the end of the world. The world's going to end next week. We got to do all this stuff. But, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having some supplies on hand and being ready to take care of yourself in the event of an emergency. A lot of people think that, all I got to do is pick up the phone and dial 911 and, police and fire and EMS is going to come rolling in. And during normal times, that's probably true. But, if a disaster happens, especially a large scale disaster, thank you, JW. Appreciate it. Welcome in. But yeah, if a large scale disaster happens, police, fire, and EMS are going to be completely overwhelmed. And it don't take as much as people would think to overwhelm police, fire, and EMS. They can only respond to so many calls at so many times. You may need to be your own first responder. Bryant books are good. If I can grab it here right quick, I'll show you one. This book here is called Emergency Medical Responder, First on Scene. It's not too in-depth that, ordinary people can't learn from this book right here. This is what they use to teach basic first aid, a little bit of advanced first aid to first responders in work sites. It's a little bit below EMT. It's got some really, really good information in it. This is the 9th edition. They're probably on the 12th edition now. Basically, just to be honest with you, about every 2 or 3 years, they change to a new edition. But the information that's in there don't really change any, unless there's been some kind of major update from American Heart Association or something like that. So you can probably pick one of these up used somewhere and save you some money and still get the same information. There's a lot of good books out there, but I'm familiar with this one because between this And this is put out by the American Safety Health Institute, and that was who I'm certified through to teach. So I'm familiar with this book and been using this book for a long time. And it's a really good book for basic first aid and some advanced items. It'll teach you everything, show you everything from, initial patient assessment to, bandaging wounds, burns, treatment of a lot of stuff. If you can't find it locally, Brian, you might try Amazon, like I said, and look for the older editions and maybe even a used edition, and you can save a lot of money on it. There's a lot of good books out there, and there's a lot of good information that you can get offline for free. That's one of the most important things that I keep trying to tell people is you need to get some training. And you need to get that training from a reputable source, be it American Heart Association, the Red Cross, American Safety Health Institute, or ASHI, as a lot of it goes by that acronym. And, I tell people to check with their local fire department, especially if you've got a volunteer fire department nearby. There may be a first aid class coming up that they'll let you sit in on. And, once you get some training, you need to practice those skills. And as you get competent with them, try to learn some more. What I decided about 8 years ago was I went ahead and got my EMT license. And I started volunteering at the fire department. And by doing that, I've gained a lot of practical hands-on experience responding not only to fires, but, our fire department, our local fire department, we probably do 3 times as many medical and EMS runs as we do any type of fire or car accident runs. There's a lot of times that the ambulance services are busy, and it's hard for them to respond out to all areas of the county sometimes, and sometimes they page us and the ambulance first, and then we go and start treatment and assessing that patient, and then ambulance service will show up and take over. But I just put out a recent video talking about medical. That video is doing real well, and I appreciate everybody that's watched that video and left some really good comments on that video. If you haven't seen that, please go back and watch it. It went up Monday afternoon at 3:00, and it talks about these IPAC blowout kits that everybody thinks, I get one of them and I'm covered, I'm good on medical. And I titled that video, "Don't buy one of these, do this first." And a lot of people buy those and they think, okay, that's it, I've got me a medical kit. But that kit is designed for the treatment of gunshot wounds or traumatic bleeding. There's nothing in that kit to treat your kid that stuck their hand in the fire by accident and burnt their hand. There's nothing there that you've drunk some bad water and now you're got severe diarrhea. So you need to have a good, well-stocked first aid kit and a lot of over-the-counter medications on hand to treat aches, pains, fevers, colds, flus, upset stomachs, stuff to make you go to the bathroom, stuff to make you stop going to the bathroom, muscle rubs, creams, ointments for bug bites and itches and scratches, just the stuff you normally use all the time. Triple antibiotic ointments. You need to keep some of that stuff, all that stuff on hand. And one big thing I wanted to talk about tonight is tourniquets. Every prepper channel, medical channel, anything you watch, everybody talks about tourniquets and carrying a tourniquet at all times. And I agree, they're a great thing. But you need to be careful. Here's one. Here's another one. Don't know how well this is showing up on the camera, but And here's the third one. Now, the thing I will tell you is 2 of these are actual cat tourniquets from North American Rescue. And 1 of these is a counterfeit. That's a Chinese knockoff. So I'll hold them back up one at a time. And we'll call this one number 1. We'll call this one number 2. And we'll call this one number 3. Now, what I'd like for you to do is, which one of them 3 do you think is the fake tourniquet? Type of 1, a 2, or a 3? Which one is a counterfeit Chinese tourniquet? And then I'll tell you which one it is, and I'll show you what to look for so that you may not end up buying one of these counterfeit tourniquets. But the first thing that'll tip you off to one of these counterfeit Chinese knockoff tourniquets is going to be the price. If you buy a true North American Rescue cat tourniquet from a reputable supplier, and I'm not talking about eBay, and I'm not talking about Amazon, you need to be really careful. If you see these tourniquets for $8, $9, $10, $11, $12, there's a very good to excellent chance that that is a counterfeit Chinese knockoff. And that's why I don't like to buy these offline. And if you're at a gun show or some kind of event and you see a box full of these tourniquets for $8 a piece, if they're wrapped up in cellophane, ask them to open one of them up so you can look at it. Because, again, it is probably a counterfeit of an actual cat tourniquet. A true cat tourniquet from North American Rescue will average cost is about $28 to $32. Now, I know people are like, well, money's tight. I don't have a lot of money. But how much value do you place on your life or one of your loved ones' life? Is it worth $20 to you? And of course, number 3 here, and it might not be showing up on the camera real good. This is a Cat Gen 7 from North American Rescue. And it's got the gray tape up here instead of the white tape. Now, these 2, just looking at them, especially on screen here in the camera view, look identical. But number 1 that I showed you is a counterfeit Chinese knockoff cat tourniquet. These have been known and proven to fail in actual emergencies and in trainings. And you can see I've got white markings on this because I use these for training to teach people how to use a tourniquet and to show them the differences to look for. But like I said, the first major difference is going to be the cost. Now, this is an older cat tourniquet, but this is a true North American Rescue cat tourniquet. One of the first things that you'll notice is right here on the band. The true North American Rescue tourniquet will have the lot number and the manufacturer's number on the date it was manufactured. That is not an expiration date. Some people think that is, but that's not. That's when it was manufactured. I've had this one for a long time, so. But that's the first thing that you'll notice most of the time, and they get better at counterfeiting these things. But the majority of the time, nowhere on this band will you find any type of a lot number or manufacturer's number or a date. The next thing you want to look for, then, that's why I say if you're buying these in an event somewhere, you know, ask them to open it up and show it to you. But if you'll look at the back of this plastic band that actually does the constriction, see this one from China, no markings, nothing, just plain black plastic. The actual one has the manufacturer, and they usually have the picture of the cat on the back of them. And some of the newer counterfeits, you may see that on the back of it. But this one's got the writing on it. The knockoff does not. And if you look at the newer generation Cat 7 by North American Rescue, the writing is not printed on there in white. It's actually molded into the plastic. So that's another thing that you can use to help identify a possible counterfeit. The other thing is when you look at this, you can see that plastic is really thin and cheaply made. Which, I mean, it's supposed to have some give to it because you're actually wrapping that around the limb. But it shouldn't be that cheap type plastic. This one will bend and flex too, but you can just feel it in your fingers. You can feel the difference if you had it in your hand. Some of these, and they quit doing that because that was an obvious giveaway, but where it says time here, where you write the time on when that tourniquet was applied. This timestamp on a lot of them was just a little sticker that was stuck on there. This one, it's actually printed on there. But a lot of them used to be, that was just like a little sticker. And you can look, a lot of times the writing ain't real plain or real clear. So that's another thing to look for. And then one of the biggest things is this bar that when you apply a tourniquet, that's called the windlass. That's what you actually twist to put pressure to stop that bleeding. And hopefully it'll show up on the camera, but if you look at this one and you put it between your fingers, it's just real soft plastic. It bends real easy. and they'll generally break right in here. That plastic will just twist in two and break off. And the older generation cat, while it has some flex to it, it's not nothing like the cheap knockoff. And they actually, on their Gen 7s, and it's actually engraved on the wingless cat right here, but they're a lot thicker. They're even thicker and heavier plastic than the others. Now, there's some on the market. I don't have one here with me that's got the metal windlass. Now, that's good that that's metal. It's not going to tend to break. But the other failure point on these a lot of times is this strap right here that runs through that windlass. That strap right there will break. And a lot of people talk about, well, a real cat tourniquet's got that red tip on it. Oh, Mark's Trapping Outdoors. Appreciate you coming in, sir. We're talking about counterfeit tourniquets right now and what to look for, so maybe you can avoid purchasing one of these. But that's not definitely a true indicator. Some of the older model cats didn't have this red tip, and then they started putting this red tip on all of them. And then, of course, the Chinese counterfeits started putting the red tips on them too. But the little dots that you see there where it's kind of plastic welded or whatever you want to call it will look a little odd on the counterfeit ones as well. And then if you actually are holding one of these counterfeit ones in your hand, if you've ever felt cheap Velcro, you've bought a cheap backpack or a pouch or whatever, and when you feel that Velcro, you can just feel, it just doesn't feel as good. It just feels cheap because it is. So it don't stick to itself real good. Like the cat tourniquets do. So that's another thing to look for. But the biggest thing, like I said, the biggest tip off on finding these is if you see one for $8, $6, I've seen them as cheap as $6. I bought 10 of these for $50, so I got them for $5 a piece. But I bought them specifically to use in training classes and to show people what the differences are so they would know what to look for if they're buying a tourniquet. And that's the thing about buying them online. You can't see the back of this and some of the other things that I pointed out. But, it's that old saying, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. Because like I said, the newer Gen 7s from North American Rescue, they're going to run you around $28 to $32, depending on where you buy them at. So, any questions on that? I hope that gives you some good tips to look out for. Now, when you get your tourniquet and it comes new in the package and it's all sealed up in the plastic, you want to open it up and take it out of the plastic. And you want to do what we call pre-staging. So you're going to take the tip and run it through that buckle. And I usually go 2 to 3 inches and then Velcro that down. And that gives you a large loop that's already ready to go, so you can just quickly slip that on your arm pull that Velcro loose and pull that as tight as you can get it. And I didn't do that. You want to have that time Velcro pulled back out of the way so that you can get to that windlass. Now, when you're applying that tourniquet, you're going to grip that windlass as tight as you can, and you're going to pull it as tight as you can get it. You want to take as much slack out of that inner band as you can. And then, of course, you're going to start twisting that until the bleeding stops. And then once the bleeding stops, you stop. You're going to lock that in that plastic tab there and pull that strap over to lock that in place so it can't come loose. You're going to write the time that you applied that tourniquet right here, so that once that patient's transported to a higher level of care, the doctors are aware how long that tourniquet has been in place. And I've been in medical and fooling with this stuff for a long time, and there used to be the time that, oh, you never ever use a tourniquet. It causes people's going to lose their limbs. You know, that arm or that leg is going to die, and they're going to lose that arm or leg. And that used to be true years ago. But we've had a lot of advances in modern medicine now. And the other thing was people would use shoelaces or something small that when you tighten that down, it constricts on those nerves so hard that it does cause nerve damage. So if you are improvising a tourniquet, you want a band at least 1 inch wide. But for $30, there's no reason why everybody couldn't own one of these. Now, back to the knockoffs, the Chinese one. Will this work? It might. There's a good chance it might work and not fail. But there's also a good chance that that windlass is going to break, or that inner strap is going to break, and you're not going to be able to save you or a loved one's life because you decided to pay $8 for a tourniquet instead of $30. But, you know, you do what you need to do. But to me, it's just not worth the risk. And like I said, I marked all these so I know them, so they don't get mixed in by accident just by looking at one and then hurry and putting a kit together. But, you know, Boston Marathon, the bombing there was a lot of lives saved by people applying tourniquets, using belts and straps and whatever they could get a hold of. The CAT tourniquets came into play from the military, and they've seen a lot of use, and they saved a lot of lives in Afghanistan and Iraq. And they've just kind of grown from there, and they've become the leading way to control life-threatening bleeding. But I was talking about pre-staging these tourniquets. You know, you got that large loop, then you're going to hold that tourniquet, and you've got that buckle there, the black plastic on the back, and you're just going to start folding that up into a small compact package that you can stick in your pocket, in a med kit, or in a tourniquet pouch. A lot of people put these in pouches. It's marked tourniquet on their battle rattle. But that way it's not taking up a lot of space, and you can easily carry it and deploy it. Anybody got any questions on anything? If you do, drop them in the chat there, and I will definitely try to answer them. Okay. But, you know, like I said, that's the tourniquets. that tells you what to look for as far as some of the counterfeit tourniquets that's out there on the market. Now, when do you need to use a tourniquet? In the years that I've been doing the EMT and responding on calls, I've never had to use a tourniquet yet to control life-threatening bleeding. Now, that may be just pure luck on my part, but direct pressure and pressure bandages have always worked prior to going to a tourniquet. If you're familiar with Skinny Medic, that's on YouTube, got a huge channel, puts out excellent information. One of Skinny Medic's big sayings is, and he talks about when to apply a tourniquet, is if you look at that and you say, oh my gosh, that's a lot of blood, and you see bright red spurting blood, there's a very good possibility that direct pressure is not going to control that bleeding. And if you see a large amount of blood and blood spurting, just go ahead and apply the tourniquet. There's kind of two schools of thoughts out there on how to apply that tourniquet. For instance, if my injury is right in the joint, right here, I got a bad severe cut right here. Hi, Shirley, welcome in. When I apply that tourniquet, some people say high and tight. They want to go all the way up to here with it. You know, the general guidelines is 1 to 2 inches above the wound. So in that case, I put that tourniquet here. I tighten it all the way down, as tight as it'll go. And it didn't stop the bleeding. I still have room to go above that tourniquet and apply a second tourniquet to completely stop that bleeding. Whereas if I go all the way up high and tight and it doesn't stop and control the bleeding, I don't have nowhere to put an extra tourniquet. So, you know, I'm going to stick with the old school training, and that's the way I teach it. It's the way I was taught, is, you know, 1 to 2 inches above the wound and as tight as you can get it. Now, when you apply one of these, they hurt, and they hurt bad, and they're going to be screaming bloody murder. But you have to control that bleeding, because if you don't, they're not going to be screaming for long. But that's the best guidelines I can give you on tourniquets. I will do a video using a mannequin and show you in better detail how to apply these tourniquets. And I'll also be doing a video, probably might do it in the same video, on how to apply a tourniquet and how to apply pressure dressing, how to apply direct pressure, and then put a bandage on. I hope that's stuff that people want to see, because it's good knowledge to have. And I'll start doing a series of videos on that in the near future. Any questions? And again, I'm going to emphasize it again about watching out for these counterfeit tourniquets. You know, again, if you see one for $5, $6, $7, $8, that's counterfeit. You know, a true North American Rescue genuine certified cat tourniquet will cost you $28 to $32. So, and if you came in late, you can go back and watch this at the start, and I show all the different things to look out for to help you identify these counterfeit tourniquets. They are out there. There's lots of them. Another thing that you can do to make you a cheap training aid for practicing is get you one of these foam pool noodles And right now is a good time to buy them because they're generally on clearance. Yeah, Recon Medical is good, Brian. I haven't heard any issues with them. I've got a couple of those. But these usually, you can find them in 2 different sizes. This is the smaller one, and then there's a bigger one. But you can take one of them foam poodle noodles and cut you off a length of it, cut you off a length of PVC pipe, and put the PVC pipe inside that to give it some rigidity, which would simulate a bone. And then you can practice by applying a tourniquet to that. Make you a small hole in it. I don't know that it'll show up on the camera. Right here, I've got a small hole in there, so you can practice packing gauze into that wound and then applying a bandage over top of that. It's just a cheap way to make you a training aid to practice with. And again, I appreciate everybody coming in here, watching this video. I definitely want to thank, again, all of my subscribers. A couple of people's come in a little later here. I actually went to 1,002 subscribers today, which was great news to me. It might not be a lot to some people, but it was a good goal for me to reach, and I reached it sooner than I actually thought I would. So again, thank you to everybody. I've gained 52 since Monday morning. So that first aid video that I put out seems to be doing really well. It's getting a lot of views, a lot of good comments. And so again, thanks to everybody for that. Any questions, drop them in the comments. Type 45 in the chat. Nightbot will drop your link. There's not a lot of people in here tonight, but that's all right. Appreciate each and everybody that came in. And if you're watching this later on the replay, thank you for that as well. But let's see if I can find some pictures here right quick. I'll try to show you a couple of pictures. Well, right there is one of the IFAKs that everybody thinks that, you know, I buy one of these and I'm good to go. I don't need to get no medical kits. I don't need to have no first aid supplies. And, you know, you've got a tourniquet and the chest seals, and behind those chest seals is 2 5x9 trauma pads. You know, you got some compressed gauze, some gloves, an Israeli bandage, a roll of tape, the combat gauze that's treated with the blood stop powder, and a chest decompression needle that if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to poke a bigger hole in somebody's lung and kill them, and a nasal airway. And, you know, like I said, for treating a gunshot wound or traumatic bleeding, those are great. But, you know, if little Susie tripped and fell and put her hand in the campfire by accident and she's got a bad burn on her hand, there's nothing really in there. You might use that compressed gauze to wrap it, but there's really nothing there to treat that burn. So you need to have, you know, a burn kit, some of the burn gel. The other thing about burns and treating burns, you know, there's a lot of old wives' tales out there about putting mustard or mayonnaise or Vaseline. You'll see everything in the world out there on a burn. And that's the last thing you want to do, because you're trapping that heat from that initial burn in to that wound. And the first thing you want to do is stop the burning process. So, cool, not cold, but cool running water if possible. If they've got rings and jewelry on that you can remove without causing any damage, you want to get those off as quickly as possible, because if it's on the hand, because those fingers are going to start to swell, and then that ring is going to be impossible to get off, and it's going to cause damage that way. So remove any jewelry, stop the burning process. If it's a powder, you got some of the powdered chlorine because you're going to purify some drinking water, and they get that spilled on. That's a caustic agent. You want to brush that off. Don't pour water on it. Brush it off as best you can. But stop the burning process before you start trying to treat it. And don't put mustard or anything like that on it. Now, these burn gels that you can actually buy, and you can buy bandages that have that burn gel and stuff built into them. That's designed to draw that heat out and not trap it in. So you can use that. But yeah, some of the old wives' tales about putting stuff that we ain't talking about, you fell asleep out in the sun and got a sunburn. Don't put anything on there that's going to trap heat in and cause more damage. You want to stop that burning process. Again, cool running water if possible, if you have to pour it out of a canteen or a bottle or whatever. But cool that burn down and stop that burning process so that it's not penetrating further and further into under the skin and causing more damage. If there's any blisters that's formed, don't break those blisters. Leave them alone. Just loosely bandage it with dry, sterile bandages. Dry, sterile dressings, loose gauze. Don't break any blisters. If it's what we call a 3rd degree burn, where it's actually penetrated the skin, it's black, it's charred, there's something melted to it, clothing is melted, stuck to it, don't try to remove any of that stuff. Just put some cool water on it, get that heat stopped. And then again, bandage it with dry, loose dressings. But like I said, I'll start doing a series of medical training videos that you can watch. Again, I encourage you to go take some training. Take a first aid class from American Heart Association, from the Red Cross, American Safety Health Institute, ASHE, as I said earlier. You can learn some stuff by watching videos, but you're not going to learn as near what you will by taking a class from a good instructor and practicing this stuff hands-on. I just can't overemphasize that enough about getting some good quality training. Let's see. Pull up another picture here. But this is a picture of one of my bags. I have 2 kind of first responder bags that I use for when I do respond with the fire department. But they work the same way for me here at home. I have one broken down into trauma and one broken down into medical. And this is my trauma pack. And you can see it's stuffed to the gills, but I have a SAM splint for splinting fractures. I really, really like these SAM splints. They don't take up a lot of room. They're not like the old padded board splints. If people have seen those, I have sets of those that I keep. But these SAM splints, you can mold them. You can cut them easily with a pair of trauma shears. So if you just need to splint a couple of fingers, you cut off a little piece and make a splint for a finger. You can roll that up and make a splint for an arm. You can splint a leg, an ankle. They're just universal. And the military carries these as well now, which theirs are usually green and black, but they're really inexpensive and they're an excellent item to have. You know, I've got all kinds of gauze pads and non-stick gauze pads in there, anywhere from 2x2s up to 4x4s, 5x9s, and there's even a 10x30 trauma pad in that pack right there. You know, there's several rolls of tape, there's pressure bandages, trauma shears, bandage scissors, forceps, ace wraps. I like the Coban. I wish I should have brought a roll in here with me. But the Coban is that little stretchy bandage material that sticks to itself. And you can tear it real easy with your fingers. And you don't have to have no tape or nothing. You just wrap it and it sticks to itself. And it's vet wrap is what it actually started out as. It's what they used to wrap legs on horses and stuff at horse races. But it's excellent for bandaging quickly. And like I said, it sticks to itself. You don't have to have no tape or tie any knots or do anything like that. Ace bandages have a multitude of uses. And anywhere from using along with that SAM splint for splinting a fracture, you know, course wrapping a sprained ankle. And I can take, and I'll try to show that in one of my videos, but I can take a handful of gauze and an ace bandage that you can pick up at the Dollar Tree for $1, or probably $1.25 now. But I can take some gauze and one of them ace wraps, and I can make a pressure bandage that's just as good as an Israeli bandage by the way that you apply it. And I'll show that in a future video. But, you know, that's another good item to have. And triangular bandages, they're kind of old school, but they just have so many uses and they're so easy to use and they're cheap. But I mean, you can do everything from making a sling for an arm with them to making a improvised tourniquet to tying up a splint to actually using them as a bandage. You can put that down and then take another one and tie over top of it and make a pressure bandage. They're cheap. They're a square of cotton, but they work good. No, they're not going to be sterile as a bandage that's sealed up in the paper packaging. But if you're just trying to get some bleeding stopped, I wouldn't worry about if it's that sterile. We got to get that bleed stopped first. Any questions? Since we don't have a whole lot here tonight, I'll probably stop here in just a little bit. Unless you all want to talk, I'll stay as long as you all want to stay. That's definitely not a problem. Yeah, the adult and baby diapers is good to have, Shirley. Another thing that I don't think people realize is some of the potty pads for pets. They are, really good for, if you've got somebody that's sick in the bed and they can't get up and they have accidents. If you need to put something under somebody that's got a wound that's draining or whatever to help keep things clean, they're really inexpensive and they work really good for that. I keep some of those on hand as well. Again, all the different types of over-the-counter medications. There's just so much. I mean, you sit down and think about it. And, one of the best pieces of advice I can give you is just think of what you use on a normal daily basis, throughout the year at home, what type of aspirins, what type of pain relievers, fever treatments, whatever. Yeah, Shirley, yard sales are good. And I mean, it's kind of a bad way to put it that way, but a lot of times if you've had somebody that's been sick long-term at a home under home care and they pass away, they generally have a lot of medical supplies, bandages and different things that you can get really cheap. And these, whether you have them in your area, we have a lot of these indoor flea markets. I call them vendors set up in their booths. You know, there'll be 40 or 50 booths in this building that the building owner's running, and everybody's got their own little individual booths. And, you know, I've picked up a lot of medical supplies, splints and bandaging materials, a really good Littman stethoscope, really cheap. And, you know, so if you have those types of vendors malls or something in your area, that's a good place. Just go in and walk around every now and then and look. And from time to time, you'll run across some real bargains on medical supplies like that. And I take the Rubbermaid totes and I just keep stacking it in there until I get it full. And then I tape it shut, right on it, medical supplies, and then I start a new one. I mentioned that in my video, and I don't think people truly understand. But if you've ever had to treat anybody at home for an amount of time that's had a severe, serious open type wound, it's unbelievable at the amount of gauze rolls and tape that you'll use just keeping that wound covered and clean and sterile and protecting it. And I don't, you know, people think they can get one little box of Band-Aids and one little pack of gauze and one roll of gauze and one roll of tape, and they're going to be good to go. And that's not true. I mean, Refuge Medical, very independent. I mean, they sell what they call a wound care bucket. I mean, it's a 5-gallon bucket full of gauze materials and bandaging materials. I don't know what the current prices on them are right now. They were on special there for a while, but it's supposed to be enough to treat one person for 30 days that's got a severe wound. But, you know, you can, like I was saying, you know, you can go to flea markets and indoor vendors malls and watch and yard sales and pick some of this stuff up really cheap and buy a 5-gallon bucket yourself, make your own wound care bucket, whatever it takes, you know, to get this stuff and have it on hand. Any other questions? Any comments? Any concerns? Anything you would like to see in the future? Yeah, Bears Refuge Medical. Yeah, it's a great place to get medical supplies, and that's a reputable vendor, you know, that you can trust that you're getting what you're paying for. You know, his stuff's all North American Rescue. The majority of it is, especially the tourniquets and different things like that. I mean, he's not selling knockoff and garbage. Jace, I've never bought anything from them. But a lot of this stuff I've just accumulated over the years, I guess. And like I said, I don't know that you can ever have too much of it. I know there's some things that people get, I mean, surgical kits, but do you know how to do surgery? You know, is there somebody in your group that can do surgery? You know, that's the other thing. As you advance and you get into this preparedness, you can't do it alone. You're not going to survive alone. You need to have a group and a wide, diverse group of skills. But it's 8 o'clock, and I think Shirley it's just me and you in here right now. I truly appreciate it. Thanks everybody for stopping by that stopped in. If you watch this on the replay, thank you for watching it on the replay. Hit me up in the comments after the replay if there's something you would like to see a video on as far as first aid and medical. I will definitely do my best to put up a good video for you. Yeah, I volunteer, Shirley, our local fire department, and as an EMT and firefighter, and it's a great way to get practical hands-on experience. But I appreciate everybody coming here. My wife has a doctor's appointment early in the morning, and we have to drive 2.5 hours to get to it. So I'll call it quits for tonight. Again, thank you, sir. Thank you to everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks to all my subscribers again. I appreciate that for helping me get over that 1,000 mark. And I'll see you next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. And we'll talk about something else. And I'll try to get that posted up ahead of time so everybody will know. Night, Shirley. Appreciate it. Good night, everybody. See you on the next video.